Welcome in. It's the Clippers Talk Live. I'm Adam Osland. Clippers taking on the Boston Celtics tomorrow. Another front end of another back-to-back. We'll talk about that and more with our guest from 213 Hoops tonight in Lucas Hann. Don't call him Han. He's my boss, and he's a good one to work for. Lucas, thanks for joining me here on Clippers Talk.
It's always a pleasure, T-Bone.
Oh, that is a deep cut there. Right to the bone.
Day one, Clips and Dip pod listeners will know. Yeah. No, it's always good, Adam. Always good to see you.
Is it though? Because last night, I'm going to start things off in an interesting way. Last night, this guy, Francis Meek, got mad at me on X because I guess I wouldn't answer his question about a substitution with KPJ and Terrence Mann late in that ball game. And he was just being really militant about it. It's not that I even thought he was wrong, but he was being so aggressive that it was just rubbing me the wrong way. And I was like, yeah, my substitution is just to meet you. And so after that, he said, so that's a no, but my whole persona is pretending I'm the only person with eyes. Completely a tedious shtick. By far, the most unpleasant, brand-killing 213 Hoops contributor. Lucas, please don't fire me.
That's you. You're the most unpleasant brand-killing contributor.
That's what Francis Not So Meek said here on X.
Fascinating. I always thought it was Rob, but I'm stuck with him because he's co-owner. So interesting.
Well, if you need to trim the fat.
Adam, you might be. It's funny. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, none of these people actually know us, right? But like, I know all of us, and you may in fact be the most pleasant. The most generally upbeat of us. So, okay, yeah. Hey, you know what? That's why I don't tweet anymore.
Yeah, you know what? It is rough on there sometimes. I mean, 99% of the time, it's all positive. But this one particular guy said that pertaining to 213 Hoops, so I thought I'd bring it up since I had you on. But let's start with this.
We'll bring it up at your performance review.
No, that's fair. I'm sure I'll have some low marks. Now, this just came out, and so I want to start with this before we get into the big picture where the Clippers are at the midway point and just your overall thoughts on where things are headed with the trade deadline coming up. But the injury report was released about an hour ago. Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubac both out tomorrow night against the Boston Celtics. James Harden, Norman Powell, Chris Dunn, and Nico Batum are all questionable for that ball game. How many of those guys do you think play against the Boston Celtics? If you're already not playing Kawhi and Ivica Zubac, I don't know how good your chances are of taking down Boston.
They're going to lose that game. Yeah, I mean they're losing that game. I don't think this Clippers team. I think if you took this Clippers team exactly as it is, but sat Ivica Zubac out for the season, I don't think they win 20 games. So they're not beating Boston without Zoo tomorrow. That's okay. I do think, I'm inclined to say like they should, it's a 6-game and 9-night stretch. They clearly didn't have legs in the last loss. Like, I'm not saying you give everyone the night off. Chris Dunn, has been playing lower minutes off the bench, stuff like that. But James and Norm, yeah. But then James Harden, pretty consistently says he needs to be playing in games to keep his rhythm. So, we've seen him in the past where they tried to give him a rest night and then he complained afterwards that it threw his rhythm off missing a game. So, yeah, I don't know, but I'm not I'm sure we'll talk about Zoo. I feel like every time I talk to you want to talk to me about Zoo, but yeah, I was trending towards Zoo has been the Clippers' best player this season for the last couple weeks. On our show, after each win, we do the gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal thing. I was giving Zoo a lot of golds, and I was starting to really, lean that way. And then seeing just how completely irreplaceable he is on both ends of the floor. I think he's even more irreplaceable than James Harden, who is pretty irreplaceable as the offensive engine of this team. I think this Clippers team would be better if you dropped Zoo off of it if you dropped Harden off of it than if you dropped Zoo off of it.
Do you still have Boston as the best team in the league? Do you always say, well, they're the champs until somebody beats them? Because I'm dangerously close to saying the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to beat them in the Eastern Conference this year.
I am not dangerously close to saying that. Yeah, I do. I've always thought Cleveland was this Cavs core was better than their playoff performances. And, Kenny Atkinson, I think all of us who were around the Clippers at the time that Kenny Atkinson was with the org and hearing all of that, I mean, it was everyone was talking about the impact that he had when he was on staff with the Clippers. So his big focus when he was with the Clippers was player development. And the way that people talked about him and what he did for Clippers player development during that time was very similar to how people are talking about Jeff Van Gundy in the defense this season. So it doesn't surprise me to see him get put into a good situation and have a team really succeed. But I'm not ready with them in Boston yet. No.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. They still have a few issues, I think, with guys who have to play because they're offensive scorers for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but they can be hunted defensively because they're a little bit small out there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it's because my buddy's a Cleveland Cavalier fan, and so I'm rooting for him a little bit. But so let's say the Clippers do lose to Boston tomorrow night because not many guys play. And even if they did, Boston is that good. We saw what happened in the first meeting in Boston where I thought the Clippers played pretty decently, and they still lost by 25-32, I think maybe it was, just because Boston couldn't miss from the outside. You beat Washington the next night. And you're 2-2 in this 4-game, 5-night scenario that presented itself after the rescheduling that happened due to the fires, obviously, here in Los Angeles. And you got a win against the Lakers as one of the two. I think they're in pretty damn good shape.
Yeah, you take it. I mean, the schedule is really messed up right now because of circumstances beyond anyone's control. And, sure, maybe it ends up costing you a win compared to what the schedule would have been otherwise. I mean, there's now more games later on that are affected by this domino. So, we don't know how it all will shake out, but it's completely outside of your control. So you just, I think, to your point, if they get through this 4-night and 5-game stretch with Kawhi Leonard not playing back-to-backs, 2-2, with the key win against the Lakers behind them in the standings, you take that and you move on.
Lucas, I think you got to show off the shirt. You showed me off air, but people see that beard and they go, "Is that Milos?"
I've got the Serbian Heritage Night Milos and Boban t-shirt. Yeah,
pretty freaking great.
I want you to know, Adam, I did not wear this t-shirt today. I put it on for this. I was like, yeah, let me see if I have anything fun to wear on Adam's show, and I picked it out. So yeah, thanks for noticing, commenter Jeremy.
I want to go back to Ivica Zubac here because you talked about how we've discussed Zubac heavily whenever you come on Clippers Talk for good reason. He's one of the most important, if not the most impactful player on this team when you account for both ends and how he's been available so much in his career as a Clipper. But we did a ranking before this season started of who are the best centers in the league and where exactly does Zubac fit. And this was, I think, after it was, who was it? It wasn't Clutch Points. Who put out that Ivica Zubac was like 22nd? Was it Hoops Hype in centers or something like that?
I don't read anything 10. But 213hoops.com to get my basketball.
You're right. And you wouldn't find casual stuff like that there.
Yeah, no, none of that nonsense on 213hoops.com.
So whoever it was obviously didn't know what they were talking about. And I do think they actually apologized at one point this season. But we were going off of basically we were looking at player efficiency rankings of centers heading into this season from last year and just throwing out names and seeing, okay, is this guy better than Zoo? Is this guy better than Zoo? Is Zoo better than this guy? How far up? Because we came to the conclusion he can't be top 10 because he just gets squeezed out by a couple of guys that
I seem to recall that we had him right in like sort of a dealer's choice in that kind of like 9, 10, 11, 12. Like I think there were a few guys there that we were like, yeah, Zoo might be better today. They might have more upside, that type of thing. But I seem to remember us being right in that maybe 10, 11.
Okay, so Joel Embiid, when healthy, better than Ivica Zubac,
Yeah.
but can't stay healthy. I'm still going to put him above Big Zoo as we re-rank this.
I think we should do, because Zoo has had a great half season, right? So rather than doing this like hypothetical, who might be the best, who do we overall, blah blah blah, right? Let's just play who have the best centers in the NBA been in this half season.
Okay.
Joel Embiid. If we're
No.
playing who's better overall, whatever. But like, he hasn't been one of the most productive centers in this half season of basketball.
All right. Well, this is going to get interesting then.
This will make Zoo ranked higher, which is what I want. So
he may find his way into the top 5 with this criteria. So Nikola Jokic above him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kristaps Porzingis? Has he played enough?
What do you think? What do you think?
I kind of think, if we're just talking about this season so far, I'm trying to see how many games exactly he's played.
He's only played 19. Yeah,
I think I'm taking the availability.
He's shooting the ball well, but yeah, and Boston's defense hasn't been as good. I mean, yeah, I think at 19 games we can take Porzingis off the list.
Okay, Victor Wembanyama.
He's been better than Zoo this season.
So that's 2 guys over Zoo.
Yeah.
Andre Drummond, no.
No.
Mark Williams, no. Alperen Şengün.
I was talking about this a little bit with Rob Flom over the weekend. Şengün, I think, is and actually with my friend Jesse Beer as well. And Şengün is a really interesting name here because he is more of an offensive hub for the Rockets, but he's
more Pau Gasol than Marc Gasol.
Yeah, and he's, I mean, the 5 assists per game for Şengün. He's, the 19 points compared to Zoo's 15, but also he's self-creating more of that, way more touches, but he's not as good on the defensive end. I think, as good as Zoo's been on offense this year, I think he's even more important to the defense. I think this is a really close one, but I will take Zoo over Şengün. I think Zoo's been that good in these 41 games.
All right. Well, you're the guest, so I'm going to go with that too.
Do you disagree?
No,
speak up, man.
I think as good as Houston has been defensively, they're not as good as the Clippers. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Şengün necessarily is the major reason why they're that good defensively.
No, I don't think so. No.
So I think overall, I'm taking, if it's close, if it's even, Zoo's leaving. If it's close, I'm going with Ivica Zubac in this scenario.
I think this is an interesting. I think right now, if you swapped Zoo and Şengün, I think both teams would get better. Because I think Şengün can do more offensively, which the Clippers desperately need. Gets rid of some of that, like whether or not Kevin Porter Jr. is going to play. So much of that second unit offense is like, Kevin, please do something. Everyone's going to stand here and watch you. And Şengün gives you another hub that you can play through. The Clippers would still be really good defensively because of all the personnel that they have. And I think, I think that would be a both teams better one.
Or what if they just gave it to Zoo like he is Şengün and actually fed him the basketball like he's a much better center with a better reputation on the offensive end?
I mean, you from your lips to Ty's ears.
Yeah. All right. So we got Victor, we got Nico over Big Zoo so far. Here's a good one. Jared Allen.
Yeah, this is the guy that I think if we're going to look at those sort of like kind of intangible, what is the effect on the defense and how good is the defense? Allen is a guy that is probably another big riser from when we were talking about this list in the preseason. He is playing a little bit less, like only 29 minutes a game, and they're playing with, a lot more around Mobley in those other minutes. But he's been good, dude. And I think if we're just looking at this half season, he's been such an important part of such a dominant Cavs team. I would lean Allen over Zoo after
Yeah.
just having lean Zoo over Şengün.
No, he has to be. That's 3 guys above Zoo. Daniel Gafford, no. Clint Capella, no. Mo Wagner,
Adam,
no.
I think we're done. If I'm being honest with you, I think we're done.
Hold on. What about Bam Adebayo?
Is Bam having a very good season? Miami, lots of things going well over in Miami. Team defense is good.
I don't know if it's his fault, but
I'm not Bam's not on my short list for All-Star this year. I mean,
yeah, he's played 40 games. He's getting 16 and 10.
Who's getting what, 15 and 13? I mean,
yeah, and Bam's not even getting a block per game.
Yeah. I've really liked Bam, throughout his career just because of his versatility on the defensive end. And I think he is sort of by name, by reputation, considered a star guy.
Yeah.
But I'm not really Zoo's been that good, man. I'm gonna come on your show and be the biggest homer ever. Zoo's been better in 40 games than Bam Adebayo.
I think that's facts. You contextualize it. What's going on in Miami? His individual numbers, team numbers. It's not there. Not this season.
45% from the field. You know what I mean? He's not scoring efficiently.
This might be.
They're worse with him on the court than off the court.
It's probably one of the worst halves of a season that he has had so far as a player, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's kind of a wild card because he's been playing center this season, and he's been pretty impactful for his team.
Yeah.
Karl Anthony Towns in New York.
Yeah, I think he's probably I think he's the other guy who has. I mean, 25 and 14. There's no doubt here. I think that he with the 3 guys that we mentioned and Zoo, I think those are your top 5.
That's it.
I mean,
that's it.
I think we start looking now, right?
It ain't Gobert.
It's not Gobert. Are we calling Anthony Davis a center? And if so, are we saying that he's better than Ivica Zubac? Because I remember watching a game the other night where I don't know. I mean, my memory isn't great, but
his defense. You look at the numbers. It has not been. They're 24th, or they were going into that game defensively against the Clippers. They were 24th heading into that game the other night. He hasn't had the impact he typically does on the defensive end. I think earlier in the season, you could definitely say it was AD over Zoo. I do think he qualifies as a center. I don't think he wants to qualify as a center, but he does. I think Zoo's been better when you account for the defense he's had. AD was 5 for 14 in that game.
Yeah, I mean, no, Zoo worked him in that game. Zoo worked Anthony Davis in that game for sure.
What about Sabonis?
I don't know, man. I have I'm in kind of I have a mental block on the Kings with the whole Mike Brown thing. I have a hard time moving past that. But yeah, I think it's fair if you're going to call Anthony Davis a center, even with the issues, even with Zoo outplaying him head to head. I think it's fair to put Anthony Davis ahead of Zoo. I think it's fair to put Sabonis ahead of Zoo.
So how many guys do we have ahead of him then? 5?
That's
Jared
6,
Allen, Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, Karl Anthony Towns, AD, Sabonis. That's 6.
So we got to be done now. Zoo 7. We good with that?
Yeah. Zoo 7. It's definitive, guys. We cleared that up for everybody.
Yeah, I tried to stop you before you could name some of these other guys, but we almost made him top 5, but you had to be diligent.
It ain't Miles Turner.
No.
It ain't Nurkic. It's turning into it ain't Al Horford. This is it. Big Zoo, 7th best center in the league so far this season. It's not debatable. It's obvious. It's clear. All right.
Yeah.
So what's also clear is, as you mentioned earlier, without him in that game last night against Chicago, Coach Lou played Mo Bamba 15 minutes in a game without Ivica Zubac against the team with the worst paint defense in the league. The Bulls were giving up 56 points per game in the paint. The Clippers only got 50 against them. And for the most part, Coach Lou elected to go small. If he doesn't have faith in Mo Bamba, obviously Kai Jones is not there. Moussa Diabate is no longer there. It feels like there should be some more urgency. What happened against Chicago highlights a real deficiency on this Clippers team that if they don't have Ivica Zubac, and look, if you don't have him for an entire playoff run, you're not going anywhere. But can you get by in a couple of quarters without him if he gets banged up or if he gets in foul trouble, or a game without him in a playoff series is the question. And I'm not seeing it with what they have backing him up right now.
I think there are some matchups where the Clippers where that could be conducive to going small. And now I think Zoo is good enough that your small should never be plan A for this team. Even no, it doesn't matter what the matchup is. Zoo is plan A. There are some matchups where I feel like you can get away with stretches more comfortably and consistently with like Batum at the 5. And I think probably in the playoffs, that's what they'll do. I don't think they'll play Bamba in the playoffs unless they get someone in, right? But you can go Nico at the 5. Like if you're going against, let's say OKC gets to full strength and they're on their second unit and you've got Chet Holmgren in, you play Nico against Chet. Like you're chilling, right?
Yeah.
But I think in a series against Jokic, you need another like strength post option besides Zoo. Bamba ain't in it. Kai Jones ain't it. Zoo is going to have, if you play a series against the Denver Nuggets, which is what it would be if the playoffs started today, Zoo is going to have a first quarter where he picks up 2 fouls and someone has to come in and do a shift against Jokic. And like I don't think there's anybody they can get where they'll be like, if Zoo is out for the season, we'll be fine. But like, can you get through some shifts? Jokic is going to play 44 minutes a game in that series. Zoo's going to play what? 35? I mean, he's not going to play 40 minutes a game.
I hope 35.
So who's gonna guard Jokic in those other 8 or 10 minutes? I mean, you can go small and trap and blitz and use Nico a little bit.
That's what they would do,
but not for 2 full shifts a game for 7 games.
No,
you got someone else has got to come in and play, right?
They put Kawhi on him at times, honestly.
Yeah, but I don't think Bamba's that guy. I think this is a team that needs another a big man that you feel like could play in the playoffs. Defensively.
Is there a guy available? Is there a name? Is Jonas Valanciunas, if they got him for 2 seconds or a second, and PJ Tucker, and defensively, he's got real limitations. I don't think people realize.
That's why you saw me just do a big. I mean, I don't think he's good enough on defense. I really don't. I don't think that's what the Clippers don't need a like guy who can't defend but can play this pop 5 or whatever. Like they need someone that you can rely on defense. I mean, I think you look at like a Robert Williams, who's the 3rd center in Portland, and has a contract that matches up with PJ Tucker. You could look at like Larry Nance, who's more of like a 4 or 5 guy, but his switch and playing 5 in his career on an expiring contract in Atlanta. That's about the same size as PJ Tucker's. Steven Adams, Chris Boucher. I've never been a big Boucher. I think he's too. I don't think he has the strength that you would want for that Jokic matchup. But you could say the same about Larry Nance, but I just think Larry Nance is a better basketball player overall to compensate for that. I look at like Steven Adams, who's got a $12.5 million expiring in Houston, and I wonder, does he shake free anywhere? Does he? If Houston makes a trade, does it include that Adams contract, and does he get bought out? Like, so yeah, I think there's some names out there to keep tabs on.
There's no easy answer. There's no clear picture. Even if you get Robert Williams, who I love, Robert Williams to me healthy projects as a starting center in this league. Like, he could be that good if he could ever stay healthy for a sustained period of time. I always felt like when Boston lost him, they're missing a dimension, an element that teams can take advantage of, but they had the right matchup last season to where it didn't matter. Jason Tatum, I think, even said when Denver lost, we knew it was over. We knew we were going to win the championship because that was the only team that could really give us problems.
Yeah.
And I think people, they have this misconception when we talk about just finding another guy to throw at Jokic. It doesn't mean you're going to stop him. But can you have someone that can stop him from shooting 75% from the field, which is what he shot against Montrezl Harrell in the bubble? And they did have someone in Zubac. It's the difference of people said, well, you cook Zubac too. It's like, well, he's shooting 50% against Zubac versus 25% better against Montrezl Harrell. There's a huge chasm and difference there between the way he is cooking. That's all they need. That's what the Lakers were able to do back then with the bodies they had to throw at him, with Dwight Howard, with JaVale McGee. That's the strategy. That's what you need. And you might need somebody else, not just against Jokic, but against a team like Memphis or a team like Houston in a playoff series. If we talk about scenarios where Ivica Zubac is out for some time, if he's out for an extended period, it doesn't matter. But if he's out for a little bit, can you get by? Can you find a way against certain teams? Against Dallas, there are other teams too to worry about that have some size in the West. Like you bring up.
I mean, I really worry about like a Nico Batum at center on a Derek Lively type roller, because if they try to switch that, which they do like switching that because they're comfortable with Nico taking that assignment on, but then you're leaving probably, it's going to end up being like Chris Dunn chasing Derek Lively there. Like, Chris Dunn's a great defender. Chris Dunn's not breaking up a lob 14 feet above the rim to Derek Lively. You know what I mean?
All right, let's shift to something else then. Let's talk about some of the smaller guys. We'll go from big to small here. So I thought it was telling, even though that guy who got upset with me, Francis Meek, I'm not disagreeing with his overall point. When Coach Lue took out Terrence Mann for James Harden, that's fine, but he had a decision to make. And instead of taking out KPJ for James Harden, it was Terrence Mann going out of that game. And I went back, and Terrence Mann was in there from the 4-minute mark of the third quarter through the first 6 minutes of the fourth. So he played a 10-minute stretch. But I think to some degree that's telling that Terrence Mann was the guy taken out there, and Terrence Mann was the guy who didn't play both games like KPJ did on the back-to-back. He played against the Lakers and Chicago. Is Coach Lue showing the pecking order, and is KPJ ahead of Terrence Mann clearly?
It seems like I want to give Ty a little bit of wiggle room here. I think Ty is still very much figuring out what is the appropriate balance of skills that are needed in this rotation with Kawhi Leonard, as what you're getting from Kawhi Leonard is constantly changing and growing, right? Like, because you have Kawhi coming in, slowly getting more aggressive offensively, slowly getting that minutes load increased, but then still sitting every other game. And so there's a little bit of whiplash that I think the team, the pecking order is all dealing with. Who's getting shots, who's getting touches, who's the main guy in these lineups, right? All that there's whiplash because Kawhi has a shift where he doesn't do much. Then he has a shift where he goes, okay, I'm going to take 5 possessions in a row and play my game. And then he doesn't play the next night because it's a back-to-back. And other guys are adapting around that. I think Ty is adapting around that. And there was a game. We've had 3 in this stretch of since Kawhi and Terrence were both playing at the same time. There's been 3 full-strength games. Terrence has been a DNP in the first and the third. KPJ was a DNP in the second. So I'm not sure. I think Ty might still be figuring things out, so to speak. But I think it's really hard as an organization to not be giving Terrence Mann minutes, in part because what he can do, right? Like, he's been an important piece of a lot of playoff runs for this team. But also because they just gave him that extension, 3 years at $15.5 million a year starting next season, and to devalue him, potentially fray that relationship, potentially negatively affect his trade value. That's a tricky spot for the team to be in too. So I just don't know that. I think Ty said he's figuring things out. I think he is, and I'm not sure that it's going to settle on Terrence not playing every night.
How long has because you guys talked about this and you had a great show, even with Joseph Rye Ward. It was a great show the last episode.
Wow.
I'm just checking to see if he's listening.
I'm gonna have to let him know.
I hope he's a big Clippers Talk listener, but probably not. He pops his head up for air once in a while. You guys got him on with 213 Hoops. It was great. The last Lob the Jam podcast with you and Robert and Joseph. But
he's focused on being a new father now. Shout out Joseph.
Oh, he is? Oh, congratulations. I'm going to stop talking shit. Joseph, what are you doing on a show like that? You got to focus on father. I'm kidding.
It was after bedtime. It was after we recorded late. Yeah.
No doubt. After the Lakers game. So he brought up Ty Lue's proclivity to lean into guys like KPJ. There's something about guys that have some juice, have the ability to initiate, also create for themselves out there. And he's talked about in the past, remember that quote he had a couple of years ago? I know you guys love Wingstop, but I was a guard. I have an affinity for guards.
Yeah.
It's played out that way. It has. Yeah. They've been looking for a guard for some time. It wasn't just Coach Lue, of course, but they have one now, a starting one that fits, I think, the needs of what the front office was looking for and what Coach Lue was looking for with James Harden. Like both sides, I think, can agree that James Harden works.
Yeah.
I don't know how both sides feel about KPJ. I wonder, because it's been so up and down so far. But Coach Lue playing him over Terrence Mann to close out that game when he's 1 for 10. And Terrence Mann looked good out there, by the way, and has looked good when he's gotten minutes, when he's been healthy enough over his last handful of games. Is this going to change, or is it going to have to be a move to make Coach Lue go a different direction?
There's probably two. So here's the problem, right? I don't think, in Ty's mind, I don't think Terrence and Kevin are competing with each other for minutes. I think Kevin is an offensive ball handling, playmaking hub. Not a good one, but that's his role, right? That's his function.
His skill set's unique that Terrence Mann doesn't have.
And Terrence is like an off-ball accent complementary wing who contributes on both ends. So Terrence is competing with like Chris Dunn directly. He's competing with Amir Coffey directly, right? But so there's two ways that sort of this KPJ situation can be resolved. Way number one is this Kawhi Leonard return to play. If you get to the point where Kawhi's playing 30-plus minutes a night with his normal offensive workload, and you can stagger James and Kawhi, and you say, we're going to play through Kawhi on the second unit, and we don't need a lead ball handler anymore because Dunn can bring it up, Terrence can bring it up, and then we're going to play through Kawhi every possession. You could get out of it that way. The other way that you could get out of it is you could get someone better for that second unit hub playmaking ball handling guard role at a trade deadline to replace Kevin Porter Jr. because I think it's a pretty low bar to clear in terms of effectiveness in that role. But right now, Ty Lue's only options in that role are Kevin Porter Jr. and Bones Highland. And I mean, folks know how I feel about Bones Highland, but that ship that ship has clearly sailed, right? Like I was actually saying the other day, I really hope that they get rid of Bones Highland at this deadline, in large part because I think they could get rid of Bones Highland and sign kind of a buyout guard who could be competitive with Kevin Porter Jr. for that playmaking role. Like Kevin Porter Jr. just has not been good in that role. But right now, the competition is Bones Highland, who Ty Lue, like Ty is never going to play Bones. He's never going to say, Kevin's struggling, we're going to give Bones 10 games. We could do 100 years.
He may play tomorrow.
He'll play if enough guys are out, like especially if James is out and Kevin. But there's no point, there's no threshold at which Ty Lue is going to say, Kevin is struggling, so we're going to try Bones out in that role for 5 games or something like that. We're never going to get there. The trust is not there between coach and player.
Yeah, it's disappointing the way things have gone with Bones Highland. I think some of it has to be on him and his attitude and the way he has played during garbage time minutes with just an unserious brand of basketball for the most part. I still feel like, though, he can be a solid backup point guard in this league that can catch fire once in a while and win you some games. So, yeah, it's an awkward situation. You guys talked about Colin Sexton. I've been talking about Colin Sexton. I like Colin Sexton. I think he'd be a big upgrade over KPJ for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe an upgrade over a lot of guys in this league with his efficiency. The only downside to Colin Sexton is he's undersized, but he does work defensively. I guess the other downside is he hasn't played on a winning team, but I'm not really worried about that with him. This is a guy that played 3-on-5 in a college basketball game before and almost won it. Like,
I love that.
I don't think Colin Sexton is like an empty numbers guy that's just stat padding on bad teams or something. He's good.
Yeah.
But you don't see that as the answer?
I think Colin Sexton would be an amazing get for the Clippers. I'm not convinced that he's attainable in the asset price range that they can afford to shop in at this deadline. Gotcha. And I think to your point about him being undersized, right? Like, you look at a backcourt that is now the other thing with Colin Sexton is he's overqualified for the role that we're talking about. So with Ty Lue especially, like, you're going to get wonky 3-guard lineups with no point of attack defender in them. Like, he's going to play James and Sexton and Norm together for some reason. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is just what he's going to do. And this is actually more of a critique of Norm than of Colin Sexton. Just that Norm, as great as he's been this season, he's been so good. He doesn't defend and he doesn't dribble. It's really hard to have a guard who doesn't defend or dribble. And that makes it hard to find guys to play alongside him, because now you need guys who can defend and dribble. And if you want a guy who can play with James, you need a guy who can shoot off ball as well. So you start looking, now you're looking all of a sudden for like the perfect, backup guard. A guy who kind of might fit the bill a little better. I think he's older, he's more injury prone.
Malcolm?
I think he's less exciting in that sense, but we know he can shoot the basketball. We know he can create for himself. He can score. He can assist. We know he can defend, bigger players. Like, I do think that Brogdon, and I think Brogdon, because he's injury prone and he's older and he's on an expiring deal, I think he might be more available at this deadline than Colin Sexton. I think Colin Sexton probably still a guy who you need a first-round pick to get Utah to get into a serious conversation.
Yeah, I agree. As much as I've talked about him and how it'd be nice to get, it doesn't seem that realistic. And they could work with Michael Winger to get Malcolm Brogdon, who they had before.
They already traded us Malcolm Brogdon once, right?
Yeah.
Like, just do it.
They lost Amir Coffee.
Yeah, let's keep Amir this time, though. Yeah. I don't want to give them Amir this time.
I mean, outside the injury issues, Malcolm would be the perfect fit, honestly. He's at the right point of his career. Also, when you talk about Colin Sexton being overqualified for the job, I think Malcolm Brogdon would be fine in that role and would thrive if he's just healthy enough. What do you think's the bigger need then? Front court help or back court help for this Clippers team?
God, they need both, man, don't they?
What if you could only do one? What would you do?
I'm going to cop out, man. I'm going to say
what?
I'm going to cop out. I'm going to say that I think
they got limited assets. They might not be able to do both.
No, but so you might not be able to do both, right? You might have to try to settle one of those issues on the buyout market. You might not be able to settle one of the issues. Like, you might have to go in and just be like, we've got a weakness. We've got a defeat condition. If Ivica Zubac is out, we are not going to be competitive, and we just live with that, right? I mean, they're already in that boat with Kawhi Leonard. If Kawhi Leonard's knee starts flaring up in March and he doesn't play in the playoffs again this year, it's all for fun. It's like nothing. We're not serious at that point, right? So maybe that's just added to the list. Like, we can't survive without Zoo, but the other team, like, what is Oklahoma City going to do if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander misses playoff games?
Yeah,
right. Like, this is how teams are with their best players. Zoo is our best player. I think we need Kawhi to end up being our best player, but right now Zoo's our best player.
There's no perfect rosters that can absorb losing their top guy or their second guy if they want to win it all.
Yeah. So I think I would go for the best player that you can get.
Okay.
So I would say regardless of if it's a guard or a center, like I wouldn't get a center just to get a center. I think you need a center that you really think is a floor raiser in the playoffs defensively in those non-Zoo minutes. And so if we're talking about, right, like talking about getting like a Robert Williams, who I think could be like you could get a nice contract extension on if he stays healthy. He could be a really, really good backup for going forward. Like that's a good acquisition, not just from a filling a gap right now, but from like an asset management of players and ages and contracts. But if you're talking about someone who, like, I'm trying to think of a name right now of someone who I would be like completely unexcited by, but like the Clippers signed Mo Bamba, right? Or if you're like, oh, Phoenix will give us Mason Plumlee back or whatever.
What about
like,
Nurkic?
Nurkic is not good, man.
I couldn't believe who was the guy. There was a reporter when they brought in Nurkic who said this fulfills Frank Vogel's need for defensive-minded center, and I was like, what? Defensive-minded center? That happened. Somebody put that out there. I don't know if Old Takes Exposed can find it.
I mean, I think that Nurkic. I do think Nurkic is better than Bamba.
He is.
I would roll. If I had to take one of them with me into a playoffs to be the like when Zoo is in foul trouble and we need a big body guy, I would go Nurkic over Bamba comfortably. But and for that reason, depending on what the trade looks like, I wouldn't hate it if they traded for him. But again, depending on what it looks like I don't want to help the Suns out really either. But if you had to choose between, let's say, a Malcolm Brogdon or a Yusuf Nurkic, I'll take Brogdon as the better player and let backup big be a weakness of this team.
Yeah. Like, even if you think the front court needs more help, you're getting the better player of those two. And
yeah, every teams have strengths and weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
So, like, to the point that that Robert made to me, right, which is if the Clippers try to trade defense for offense, they do so at the risk of stopping being a great defense. Like if you try to balance because your defense is better than offense, you say, well, we're going to get a little worse on defense, but we're going to get better on offense. Being a great defense maybe is just the thing that you want to be, and you hope you get enough points on the other end. You hope you get hot in the right series like Dallas did last year versus OKC. So, if they have a chance to get a great option at center, like, I think Steven Adams would be a huge acquisition for this team. Then you go that direction. But maybe you just have a weakness, right? Like,
yeah,
Oklahoma City, in my eye test, is the best team in basketball. Oklahoma City has weaknesses. Maybe that's just your weakness.
Inexperience, front court physicality, like they have some injuries too. All right, you guys talked about, and I found it fascinating, the conversation about how you view the front office at this point of the season and what they're looking at and all the pieces that are out there and whether or not they should be going more all in or if they should still kind of wait on the sidelines and say, we know this team can be good, but we don't necessarily trust that Kawhi Leonard can stay healthy, that all these things can break our way. So we're not going to trade any more future assets. We're not going to give away any young guys with the 2031 pick. I thought that was really interesting. Just if you could surmise what you were talking about with just what the front office, the predicament they're kind of in right now, because the team has overachieved in such a way that it might put some pressure on them to do something right now.
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way, right? If the Clippers had 8 fewer wins right now, let's say that Ivica Zubac had turned an ankle in November and missed 12 games, Clippers wouldn't have won very many of those games. If that's the situation they were in right now, we would not be talking about like trying to get these upgrades at backup point guard and center. We would be talking about, can you turn veterans and expiring deals into a couple extra second round picks? Can you take a shot in the dark? Like, can you turn PJ Tucker into a buyer's remorse swap for a longer term deal for someone who you might be able to rehabilitate their value? Like, you'd be playing a completely different game from a front office perspective. So yeah, I think the fact that they're good, the fact that like this is a team that realistically, would be mildly disappointing to not finish with home court in the West. I think would be mildly disappointing from where they are right now. That gives you a little pressure to be like, things can fall apart more easily with James and Zoo missing time. Like, you do want better insurance. You do want to think about who's going to be in your playoff rotation and can you make some upgrades? Because now this is a team that not only is going to make the playoffs, they're going to make the playoffs without needing the play-in tournament, and they and that's not a fact, but it's a prediction. This team will make the playoffs without needing the play-in tournament. And they not only are hoping to like at the beginning of the season, we would all said like, hey man, make the playoffs, be competitive in a first round loss, we're good, right? I think if the team lost in the first round, again, it all comes down to Kawhi, but like, if Kawhi is healthy and playing well and this team lost in the first round, it would be disappointing. So that means, what can you do to help your rotation out on the margin to get ready so you don't just get disappointed if Kawhi is healthy? But of course, first of all, they don't got a lot to trade anyway because of everything that they've given up in these previous deals. But also, like, I'll believe that Kawhi Leonard's healthy for a playoff run when I see it. And so you don't want to invest in like it's Lucy in the football, right? She's just going to pull it away when you go to kick it. So you're not going to trade more future picks so that you can get someone who's going to, help you for that 6 minutes in the first quarter of game 2 against Jokic when Zoo picks up 2 quick fouls. So we're going to go trade future assets to get a veteran backup big. And then Kawhi Leonard's knee swells up in March and we don't see him again anyway. Like, yeah, I think that I think it's a tight spot, and I think there are ways that they can try to do things on the edges, like the Tucker expiring deal, the Bones expiring deal. They can get on-court utility for those expirings if they're willing to take back multiple years of money. I think the second round, they have 2 future second-round picks they can trade in 2030 and 2031. I would, again, like, it's just, at a certain point, you got to stop, right? But maybe if that's the swinging point, that if a second round pick is the difference between getting Brogdon or not, maybe you just do it. But
because the other side of it is, what if it goes the opposite for him? Before it was, we went all in and Kawhi couldn't stay healthy. What if the real gut-wrenching thought is Kawhi actually is healthy for this playoff run, and they didn't make that move to get them that piece that kept them from touching the very top of their potential because they were just a piece away and they didn't believe in Kawhi's health? Like, that's the scary thought to me.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but also, like, you can't live in fear, Adam. You gotta act with conviction.
I'm
right?
crippled.
You gotta act with conviction. I think the only way that I would touch the 2031 first round pick at this deadline is if it was done in service of acquiring a future star who will lead the franchise beyond James Harden and Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
And that's not happening. That player isn't out there to go get for one distant future first. So no, I would not. And if you need that first round pick to go get Colin Sexton, I'm not doing it.
No, I wouldn't either.
And
I would.
If that means that you're just like, if this team is this good next year, because it's just, looking forward a little bit, like, it's likely that this rotation will be very similar next season. And they're like around as good again. Like, you are in it from a 10-year plan perspective with how much they have given away their future drafts to put together James Harden, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard last season. they need to tread water, like, and buy time. They need to let the clock reset on these obligations that are owed. They need to get, like, Kawhi Leonard's big extension with his uncertain knees is kind of a 3-year question mark for this team. If being just all right and not going all in for a few years is an option, and it allows the Clippers to reset the clock and actually start over in 2027, 2028, 2029, around then, that's the option you take from where they are. Like, they're a good basketball team. They've been a fun basketball team to watch this year. From a long-term perspective, the organization is in a bad position. And if you can tread water and be solid and be fun while you get out of that bad position, that's an above average outcome.
You mentioned next year though, but there's a pretty big unknown with James Harden. He's on a 1-1.
Does it feel that unknown?
You think he'll opt out and just do another 1-1?
Yeah.
LeBron style?
Yeah.
I mean, he does like it here so much. He's home. I could definitely see that happening.
And he's, it's similar to
in the
Russell
past,
Westbrook.
though, to be fair, nobody would think James Harden would do that. They would think, oh, if he's got 150 million out there,
he doesn't though. That's the thing, right? Like, I think if he had 150 million out there, the Clippers would have had to have a very different conversation. They would have had to give him a better contract or lose him, right? And that would be the case for any player. No player is going to take whatever it was, 2 years and 70 million or something over 4 years, 150. But he doesn't have that out there at 35 years old. Like, he's not the version of James Harden that the Clippers are getting this year, as essential as he is to their success, is not James Harden, like the guy. He's been like maybe a fringe all-star, probably not going to make an all-star team. So yeah, I think it'll be in everyone's best interest to do another 1-1. I'm not actually very I kind of think I actually am thinking that as a foregone conclusion. Like, that's done. They'll figure out what the right number is. They got, we'll see how his second half of the season goes, all that. But at this point, he's done enough. The Clippers are definitely, like, it's not like he fell off and the Clippers say, we can't have you back. We need someone else to start at point guard. And he's not going to have, other options, really.
All right, lastly here, since this is kind of the midseason report, just how much better is this Clippers team to you than you originally thought coming into this season? I mean, how many receipts could people pull on the stuff you said before the season that would look bad now, as they would for me too? Because I said at best they're a 6th seed if everything went their way, and Kawhi played 50-plus games. That's not happening. He's played 5, and they're 6 games above 500 still. So how much more are you convinced that they can be a contender if things break their way now?
Yeah, I mean, I am convinced that they can be a contender if things break their way.
They can take out OKC?
Yeah. I'm not saying I would favor them in a series, but yeah, I mean, I think if you get the Kawhi that we have seen at the peak of his powers in the playoffs in the past, with this team around him as good as they've been, I think the Clippers are on the short list of teams that you could not write off in any series against any opponent. Now, there was a lot of ifs in that very complex sentence, but, like, yes, I think the Clippers are there. I don't think they need a big deadline acquisition. I think they need Kawhi healthy and at his peak.
And that's how you get the balance to the offense. People talk about, well, you make a move to get better in the offensive end. No.
Mm-hmm.
Kawhi.
Yeah. You add your best offensive player, right? So to answer your original question, the Clippers they have been better than I thought they would be without Kawhi. Because I said all along, if you can go 500 in the non-Kawhi games, presumably you'll be better than 500 in the games Kawhi plays, however many that is. And then you'll be above 500 on the season, and that'll get you into the play-in tournament. And then if Kawhi's healthy and playing well in the play-in tournament, you're a threat to anybody in the first round, right? But I also said this team going 500 in the non-Kawhi games would be a big win if they can pull that off. And so for them to be comfortably above 500 and as good as they are in these non-Kawhi games, I have been blown away, completely exceeded my expectations. You wouldn't find me, probably, you wouldn't pull receipts where I was like Robert Flom said the Clippers wouldn't even make the play-in tournament this season. I said they would be in the play-in tournament.
That's why he's not on.
Yeah, that's why he's the, what was the phrasing? Of the worst of the 2-1-3 contributors or something like that.
Unpleasant.
Unpleasant. Yeah, that's why he's so unpleasant. But yeah, big shot, Bob.
Who deserves the most credit for where the Clippers are at this season?
That's a great question. Who do you think?
I think Lawrence Frank.
You think Lawrence Frank? Yeah, I think the Chris Dunn and Derek Jones Jr. things have both, which were two moves that I liked, both have gone better than I thought they would. Even with Dunn, Dunn's not had a good run of games here. I think Ty Lue deserves credit. I think it's hard for us to know, if we're not in the locker room and in the practices, exactly how much to weight the coaching credit towards Jeff Van Gundy, but Jeff Van Gundy definitely deserves credit, and he's getting it. I'm going to come full circle, man. I'm going to say Ivica Zubac is most responsible for this Clippers team being better than I expected.
The answer was hiding in plain sight the entire time.
Hard to miss him, man. He's a big guy.
The seventh best center, definitively, in the NBA. We went through the rankings earlier. Once again, a follow-up to a show we did before the season started. He is Lucas Hann. Don't call him Han from 213 Hoops. You hear him on the Lob, the Jam, the podcast. Make sure to check out the last show they did with Robert Flom, with Joseph Raya Ward there. He's been and congratulations once again, Joseph. I didn't even know. I got to text him. I got to say what's up. Maybe that's why I hadn't heard from him. I thought he was just pissed at me. I was like, oh, he comes on the Lob, the Jam, but he won't come on Clippers Talk with me. What the hell is this? Well, I guess he's got a good excuse. He became a father. Lucas, thanks so much for doing this tonight. I love the analysis as always. You and me are on the same page pretty much with everything. So if great minds think alike, obviously. So, appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This has been episode, I think, 108 straight here on Clippers Talk. 108 days straight. We have had you covered here on Clippers Talk on the YouTube side. Please subscribe. Please hit the alarm button so you know when the next episode is coming. That will be tomorrow with the pregame show starting at 6:30. Clippers at Into a Dome taking on the Boston Celtics. For Lucas Hann, I'm Adam Osland. I'll talk to you next time.